This is Burger King. It's September 13th, 2022, 6 months after the war in Ukraine started. I call it a war because that's what most of the world, the collective West, calls it, but I understand why it's called special operations. Sanctions closed down McDonald's. McDonald's has been replaced. Starbucks has been replaced. Burger King, this is the great thing about Burger King and KFC, they were franchises and also Subway, and so they haven't been replaced. And basically the owners of these franchises says, you can leave, but we're going to continue to stay here. And so all the Burger Kings and all the KFCs are just the same, and this is Burger King. You could come here and you could order a Whopper, and it's brilliant, and the prices are much cheaper than America, and it tastes exactly the same. And if you notice here, Pepsi and Coke have left the country. We don't care. We Russians don't care. It's all been replaced with other drinks. You can still buy Pepsi in a lot of the stores. A lot of the different magazines. Well, we call them magazines. The different grocery stores. But they're still drinks, but they've just been replaced with Russian ones. 6 months in, there's still some Pepsi supplies left and Coke supplies, but they're dwindling. But we don't care. We're gonna win. That's just reality, folks. And how many Ukrainians, as President Putin said, Ukraine's gonna fight till the last Ukrainian, and NATO's gonna fight till the last Ukrainian, and America's gonna fight until the last Ukrainian, and kill thousands and thousands and thousands of Ukrainians. And this is KFC across the way, right here. It's exactly like KFC that you'd find in America. And then you go down here, and there's a lot of American places. Let me see. I don't see a Subway. Oh, yes, we have Subway too. So it's just like America. It's better than America in a lot of ways. In many ways. Russia is so much better than America. The crime rate here is so low in Moscow. It's just, there's no guns. And there's a kind of cooperation between, there's no ghettos here in Russia. There's racism, but it's a different kind of racism, and it's a lot less harsh than America. You have poor people in prisons just like in every other country, but America has the most prisons in the entire world per capita. And it's just that people work together, and it's just a beautiful country, and it's wake up call, folks. This is not communist Russia. It hasn't been communist Russia since the puppet Yeltsin came into power by America, and this is capitalism. This is capitalism, a Russian version. So if we're not fighting, what are we fighting for exactly in Ukraine? What are we fighting for against Russia and China? Is it really for democracy, or is it for is it for money? Is it for control of resources? And the British were the first people to have a concentration camp. They were an empire. They admitted that they were an empire. And their first concentration camp was in what is now South Africa. It was called the Boer War. And that was right before 1895. In America, they committed genocide against the Indian population. And fascist Nazi Hitler actually studied the genocide of the Indians because America was successful. And fortunately he wasn't, mostly because of the Soviet Union and mostly because of the monster Stalin. But anyway, the first concentration camp wasn't in Nazi Germany. The first concentration camp were the British, and that was in the Boer War in South Africa, where they destroyed. They fought as a colony, and then what happened around the same time is that America conquered the United States and committed genocide against the Native American people. And that's when the Maine blew up in Cuba. And some speculate, I'm not going to speculate, but basically it blew up. And that was the excuse that the imperialists, and they were actually called imperialists, needed to start the war against Spain. That's when America became an empire. That's when it became a colonial power. And it took over the Philippines. And why am I bringing up the Philippines? Because there was an order to kill every man over 10 years old in the Philippines. And that's where the second concentration camps were. In 1895, with good old Teddy Roosevelt, is that the United States committed genocide and concentration camps in the Philippines. The great Howard Zinn wrote about this in The People's History of the United States. Read it. Your country is lying to you about Ukraine. Your country is a colonial power, America. I'm American, and the only way that we as Americans can survive this century is accepting that China is number one now, and accepting that China is the great power that it is. And by 2030, it's going to surpass the United States, and America does not want to accept that. The most violent country in the world today, internationally, by all statistical measures, is the United States. No one could argue with me about that. No one. And we are now in Cold War II, and an Iron Curtain is going. The second Iron Curtain is going over the United States, or I'm sorry, over Europe right now. But this time it's being created by the United States, and it's being created by Europe. And this isn't about democracy. This isn't about communism or socialism. This is about resources, because Russia is capitalist. China is capitalist with a socialist bent. I would never want to live in China. I'd never want to live in North Korea. It's too collective. I don't agree with everything that China does. I don't agree with everything that Russia does. But I do know that the United States, by far, internationally, is the most violent country in the world. And in your name, they are killing millions of minorities. They are killing millions of women. I'm sorry, not millions, hundreds of thousands of women. Hundreds of thousands of minorities. Since the end of the Cold War, 6 million people, conservatively, have been killed by the United States. And it didn't stop with the end of the Cold War, it just only accelerated. The illegal war in Iraq. Biden is a war criminal. Trump wasn't a war criminal before he became president, but he was when he did become president. He was the only president since Carter that didn't start a war. Like and subscribe. My name is Travis Lee Bailey, MoscowAmerican.com, WhyDon'tRussiansSmile.com. Like and subscribe and end this war. I'm tired of seeing my dear Ukrainians who I lived with for 2.5 years continue to die since the war started in the illegal coup in 2014. The Zelensky regime needs to be peacefully overthrown, and Biden needs to be put on trial for war crimes.